Okay, so I recently saw Alien Romulus, and I wanted to watch some Easter eggs about the movie, and this is kind of we're gonna go through a couple of videos and see what works. I don't know what gives us the most information because there's a couple sources I use. So uh, I've never watched Think Story videos, so I'm gonna check them out right now.
Minutes, and my excruciating heartburn after eating an entire Taco Bell family meal. When I
Okay.
first heard they were making another Alien movie, my initial reaction was,
Get away from her, you bitch!
but a lot of people are saying this is the third best Alien movie after Alien and Aliens. So in this video, we'll be doing a recap of the film and its connection to the Alien franchise. Now let's grab our flutes and venture to a place where no one can hear you scream. Alien Romulus begins with a Weyland-Yutani ship combing the debris of the USCSS.
Because I do want to say, man, this was a good movie. I really did enjoy this.
Nostromo, the freighter ship in Yutani ship place where no one can hear you scream. Alien Romulus begins with a Weyland-Yutani ship combing the debris of the USCSS Nostromo, the freighter ship from the original Alien film, which Ellen Ripley self-destructed in order to kill the lone xenomorph. They've come in search of this alien after Ripley jettisoned it into space, and it's now created this asteroid-looking cocoon over itself.
Huh. So I walked into the movie at that part. I went to go get snacks, and I came back and they were doing some of that stuff. I didn't really understand what it was, because I couldn't like comprehend what was going on. I didn't see a little bit of that beginning.
One of the things Alien Romulus really drives home is how resilient these aliens are. They can survive years in space with literally nothing, which is exactly why Weyland-Yutani wants to study them. Founded in the year 2099, Weyland-Yutani is a large multinational conglomerate that isn't afraid to put its bottom line ahead of its workers. It's important to note that at this time, Ellen Ripley is still floating through space in cryosleep, where she'll eventually be picked up in the year 2179, more than 30 years after the events of Alien Romulus. So Alien Romulus takes place between the original Alien and James Cameron's Aliens. We then shift gears and are introduced to Alien Romulus's main character, Marie Rain Carradine, or Rain for short. Kinda ironic since the Jackson Star mining colony where she was born is constantly raining. This place is an absolute shithole, 65 light years from Earth,
Absolute
a
shithole.
population of under 3,000, and 0 hours of daylight a year. Rain
That
lives on
sucks
Jackson Star
ass.
with an android she calls Andy. Andy, android, get it? Her father found him in a dump, and while he has a few screws missing, pardon the pun, Rain sees him as a brother since they grew up together and her parents have died working their asses off in the mines. Rain has reached her
Yeah.
12,000 hour quota working for Weyland.
I really like the relationship between those two characters. It was really interesting to watch, especially change when he, uh, had his chip replaced. Super crazy.
Yutani and is eligible to leave. To put things in perspective, that's almost 4 years of working an 8-hour day every day. And Rain is
Wow.
only 21 years old. So when they tell her the company has doubled her quota to 24,000 hours before she can leave, she is obviously pissed.
That's
Being
crazy.
born on Jackson's Star, it has always been Rain's dream to get off planet and see the sun. She even dreams about it. Luckily, her friend Tyler found an opportunity for them to escape. He's discovered an abandoned research vessel above the colony which has several unused cryo.
That what I liked about this movie too is like the relationship that she had with that Tyler character. It wasn't like forced or anything. It was dope. How you could tell that there's something there. Like he apologized to her for something, and like it was weird when they saw each other again. I think they dated or something, and her and the sister seemed really close. Rest in peace, my boy Tyler. That man was a soldier. Without actually being a soldier, man, he would have been a great Marine, bro. Um, yeah, man, it was really interesting. They had a lot of relationships that um, this time it was really like the dynamic of the android and the main character, and you really felt for the main character, and it was the way they set it up. It was easy for you to care because honestly, that 4 years working bullshit really had me pressed when I heard they said they doubled her hours, bro. That shit had me tripping. Uh, what the fuck? So it's a quick way to get people, invested in the character. And the fact that her parents died doing that, and the company, it's a lot. But what I'm trying to say is there's a lot of relationships that were mentioned, like the woman being pregnant and like who's the father, and like you kind of felt like there was more in the friend group going on, but it wasn't about that. And it was like this friend group that just you're catching up and you're just seeing kind of this dissipate. And because this is what it is, that was the most important part of the movie. So let's move on.
Pods. This would allow their group to make the 9-year journey to Ivago, an Earth-like planet they hope to one day call home. And they need Rain, specifically her android, who would have the proper Weyland-Yutani credentials to operate these pods and access areas of the abandoned Weyland Research Station. The gang make their way into space aboard the cargo hauler the Corbellin, where Rain gets her first ever view of the sun. She's been on this planet for 21 years, and this is the first time she's ever seen real sunlight.
Bro, I can't imagine that, bro. Imagine just darkness 24/7, bro. All you do is work or watch your parents work, bro. Oh god, that's awful. And you just work to terraform. Like one of your ancestors sold everyone's soul, bro. Who did that? Who moved there? Cause it's been years. Oh, that's fucking crazy. Earth is. I really hope this doesn't happen for anybody's future. This is crazy. A lot of us are never gonna. This, anyways, I'm about to go down a rabbit hole, bro.
Their ship makes its way to the abandoned Renaissance Research Station, once run by Weyland-Yutani. It is split into 2 parts, Romulus and Remus. In Roman mythology, Romulus and Remus were twin brothers and founders of Rome. When they had a disagreement on where to build their city, Romulus, in a fit of rage, killed his own brother. Romulus was a power-hungry builder of empires, and thus the film being called Alien Romulus could be a nod to Weyland-Yutani's own power-hungriness and desire to expand across the universe.
Yep.
Romulus also joins the Alien franchise's long history of naming things after mythological figures, like the ship Prometheus after a Greek titan, the moon Acheron from Aliens named after a river in the Greek underworld, and the USS Auriga from Alien Resurrection after a Greek hero. When they get aboard, there's the fun surprise that the Romulus is expected to crash land into this ring of ice in 36 hours. But no sweat, as Tyler says, they'll be out in 30 minutes. Andy's able to turn on the station's computer mainframe, which is a Mother 9000, a newer version of the same mainframe seen in Alien, which was the 6000 model. He and 2 others are able to find the cryopods, but they don't have enough fuel in them to last the 9-year journey. Thus, they have to travel to a different part of the ship. On their journey, they uncover a massive hole going...
So you gotta think, right? We're seeing so many parts of these timelines. Like, this has been happening for a while. Like, I'm trying to think, when were they doing... Like, when was the dooming point for just, contact with humans? So, like... I think the first contact in Prometheus. I think that was when shit got weird, bro. That's when everybody started dying, bro. When they attempted to finally go out there, and then after that, it was expanding and terraforming planets and taking this organism. Like, this is crazy.
Through the hull. A hole they don't know was caused by the acid blood of the xenomorphs. Of course, the fuel needed for these cryopods are in the same room as these frozen facehuggers. But when this frozen fuel is tampered with, it has the adverse effect of unfreezing these affectionate bastards and locking them all in. Even Andy can't get them out because he needs a higher security clearance. So Rain and another crew member, Navarro, who at this point had just been chilling back in the ship, traverse the dimly lit halls of the Romulus to to save their trapped team members. In order to get them out, Rain removes the computer chip from a half-destroyed synthetic, and this synthetic is none other than a duplicate of Ash from the original Alien movie. Weyland-Yutani probably made hundreds of these things. In Romulus, he goes by the name Rook, so that's what I'm going to use going forward. By giving Andy Rook's chip, they're able to open the door and escape, but not before one of the facehuggers latches itself onto Navarro. The crew decide to use this freezing torch device on the facehugger to see if it will release its grasp on Navarro, and to their amazement, it works. But what they don't know is that the facehugger has already implanted its load into her, and that sounds wrong. Andy's new chip has also upgraded him. He speaks much more fluently, is more intelligent, and even walks different. But this upgrade has also changed his prime directive. Whereas before it was to protect Rain, now it's to do what's best for the company. He knows Navarro has been implanted with an alien, and in order to prevent her from getting her chest burst and a Xeno killing everyone else, he must kill her. This causes a chase with the team splitting up into two groups, one with Navarro who escapes aboard the Corbellan, and Rain, Tyler, and Andy who are stuck on the Romulus. Navarro uses the X-ray torch to see what has been implanted inside her, and unfortunately it's too late. A baby Xeno bursts from her stomach, and with no one to steer the Corbellan, it crashes into the side of the Romulus. A huge fuel tank explodes, and this event will shift the trajectory of the space station, so instead of it taking 30 plus hours for it to crash, it'll now do so in 40 minutes. The Corbellan ends up crash landing into Romulus's hangar, so Rain, Andy, and Tyler must travel all the way over to rescue the team. To reach their friends at the cargo hauler, they must traverse a room filled with facehuggers. So they devise a plan to heat the room to the same temperature as the human body, since facehuggers use sound and heat to find their prey. If the room is the same temperature as their bodies, theoretically they could get by undetected. This turns out to be a terrible plan, as soon they're discovered and have to make a mad dash to safety. Eventually they find Kay. We haven't talked about her. She's one of the team members' sisters who's been hiding the fact that she's pregnant, which becomes a significant plot point later on. She was on the Corbellan with the chestburster who escaped, and that creature has now grown into an adolescent xenomorph. The movie plays fast and loose with how much time it takes for these aliens to evolve. Rook will later explain that these xenomorphs have the ability to slow or quicken their metabolism, which may explain how they're able to grow so fast. So Kay is trapped with one of these aliens stalking her, but when they find her, Andy won't open the door to save her life, as it would risk all their lives doing so. So he decides to let Kay get captured by the alien as the others watch on in horror. Rain, Tyler, and Andy find themselves in the science lab where the true intentions of Weyland-Yutani are revealed. Rook tells them how he synthesized a compound from the parasites found on the Nostromo xenomorph. He calls it a miracle that will help humanity survive the harshness of space. Up until this point, Weyland-Yutani had been struggling with its colonies, humans dying of diseases, toxic fumes, and aliens. So this compound he created would rewrite our...
That's because we got one shot and we blew it.
our DNA, allowing us to bypass years of evolution and give us a much-needed upgrade. The plan now is to escape the ship and take the compound planetside where it can be further refined. At the suggestion of Andy, Tyler and Rain equip themselves with pulse rifles, but they aren't allowed to use them. If the acid blood from the alien hits the hull of the ship, it'll keep going down until it blows a hole directly into space. These guns will only be for show, as the aliens are smart enough to know these guns can kill, and they may act as a deterrent. On their way back to the ship, they find Kay still alive in a sort of cocoon, but she is in grave condition. The only way to save her is to give her part of the compound and put her in cryo until she can get treatment. As they make their escape, Tyler is grabbed by a xenomorph and ripped apart. Andy is knocked aside and starts to malfunction, so Rain grabs the hardly able to move Kay and they escape on the elevator. Now call it bravery or stupidity, but Rain tells Kay to go to the ship while she goes back to save Andy. Upon finding him, she takes out his upgrade chip and he returns to his normal self, with his directive being to protect Rain. But they are soon cornered by xenomorphs with their only course of action to shoot. This is a death sentence, as the acid would blow a hole into space. But Rain is smart. She turns off the artificial gravity and blasts through the xenomorphs, their blood floating in air, unable to breach the hull. Now she just has to work her way through zero gravity, dodging floating piles of xenomorph acid blood. This leads to an awesome elevator shaft sequence where a xenomorph is about to kill Rain until Andy leaps from the shaft and absolutely blows this alien to smithereens. Rain, Andy, and Kay make it back to the ship just in time before the Romulus crash lands into the ring of ice, and in true alien fashion, there's this moment of relief. They've escaped and everything seems fine. But this is short-lived. After being put into cryosleep, Kay, who had taken some of that compound to survive, starts to give birth, and what follows is truly terrifying. Now, there aren't many clips that show what happens in this final act, but she essentially gives birth to a human xenomorph hybrid. There's this black goo that accompanies it, the same scene in Prometheus that is capable of mutating DNA and creating new life. Kay gives birth to an egg, and inside that egg a human-looking child with jet black eyes, and in a matter of minutes this baby has fully formed into an 8-foot-tall superhuman Xeno. Andy gets his throat slit protecting Rain, and now it's up to her to kill this creature all on her own. She slips into a spacesuit to manually override the cargo release in the hopes of jettisoning the creature out into space. She ties a cord around her suit and kicks the birth egg, which contains acid, and it dissolves through the hull. As it does, it sucks her and the creature out, but Rain is able to hold onto the rope. In the nick of time, she's able to make her way back to the ship and steer it away from the ice ring, with her and Andy the only two to survive. The ending leaves a lot for future movies to build off. She and Andy are in cryosleep with a course set for Ivago. Rain promises that she will fix him. What will happen to these two? Will they make it to Ivago, and what will happen to that compound? And just like the original Alien, Romulus ends with our main character stating in an audio log that she is the last survivor. It's kind of funny, after the end of this movie, we now have two characters floating through space after a battle with the xenomorphs. But let me know what you thought of Alien Romulus. Where does it take place in your ranking of the Alien films? I want to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe, and for more...
Wow, yeah, that's interesting. That is interesting. It was a good one, man. It's funny because there are no clips of the ending right now. It's just still less than a week out in theaters. Breakdown ending, explain Easter eggs, timeline. Hidden connections revealed. Oh, I love Screen Crush. Yeah, let's watch this. We do Hidden Connections Revealed by Screen Crush, bruh. Screen Crush.
What do you mean there's something in the water?
There's just something in the fucking wall. There's something in the wall.
Hey, welcome back to Screen Crush. I'm Colton Ogburn, and Alien is back in theaters, and I could not be happier. It was scary, it was cinematic, and it paid homage to so many aspects of different Alien projects. So we're going to explain where Romulus fits in the timeline, how it relates to the prequels and the originals, as well as new lore and what it implies about the creation of the Xenomorph. Now, this is the 9th Alien film, so let's get the timeline sorted.
But wait, person, I thought it was a standalone film.
Well, it's a standalone film in the sense that you don't need to have seen any other Alien films for it to make sense, but it does take place in the same universe. Plus, director Fede Alvarez said something that specifies that it is completely canon to the universe, but we'll talk about that later. So this isn't a prequel or a sequel, it's an in-between quote.
Wada?
Well, it's set in 2142, 20 years after Alien, but 37 years before Aliens. It's not necessarily a sequel to Alien, though, because it's not a follow-up to that story. In fact, during Romulus, Ripley is still just floating in that cryo chamber in space. Therefore, Romulus is an in-betweenquel. It's its own story set between two others. Also, for reference, the events of Prometheus are about 30 years before Alien and 50 years before Romulus. Okay, so now that we have our timeline sorted, let's talk about how Alien Romulus bridges a lot of the gaps between Prometheus, Covenant, and the...
Okay, so that means First Contact was 50 years prior to that. And so many people had no idea, bro. So many people had no fucking clue. It's crazy. Where's Covenant? Huh.
And 50 years before Romulus. Okay, so now that we have our timeline sorted, let's talk about how Alien Romulus bridges a lot of the gaps between Prometheus, Covenant, and the original Ripley quadrilogy. Now, if you've seen Prometheus and Covenant, you know that their vibes are extremely different from the original film. Alien relies on the cramped, inescapable atmosphere of a spaceship, but Prometheus and Covenant spend comparatively little time in their respective ships. Instead, they swap out the cramped, sterile environment for these giant, lush landscapes of far-off planets. Prometheus and Covenant are also just way more philosophically inclined. Alien raises some great questions about corporate greed, ethics, and AI, but at its heart, it's a survival flick. Meanwhile, Prometheus is about who made us, why we're here, and if humanity is even worth saving. But the biggest difference in these movies is who they're focused on. Alien 1 through 4 with Ripley is focused on the working class. They may be on a spaceship, but they're eating gross food.
The first thing that I'm going to do when I get back is to get some decent food.
And most of them are doing it all for the money.
Look, those two specimens are worth millions to the bioweapons division, right?
In Prometheus and in Covenant, everybody is relatively well off. Some are direct descendants of the Waylands, of the Wayland Corporation, such as Vickers and David. Others are highly educated scientists, like Shaw. And of course, these are the people pondering these philosophical questions because they're the ones who have the time and the means to do so. Romulus, however, brings those two demographics together. The crew is very, very working class, like the crew from the Ripley quadrilogy. But when they steal from the Romulus ship, they are unwittingly thrusted into this very philosophical and scientific world that resembles the work we saw in Prometheus and in Covenant. Personally, I thought it was a great choice because both of these worlds exist at the same time. There are the miners who are indebted to the company and can't even leave their planet at the exact same time that Weyland-Yutani is spending trillions of dollars to play God and blow up rats. They aren't mutually exclusive on the timeline. Additionally, this film is an homage to both eras of Alien. For example, Kay's birth scene is basically an extended version of Shaw's abortion from Prometheus. And of course, Science Officer Rook is literally built from the same mold as Ash from the original movie. Rook even mentions the Prometheus project by name, stating that Peter Weyland gave his life for it. I mean, to have the face of the original android directly mention a prequel, what more can you ask for? And guys, I have to say, I love each of these movies from this franchise. The good, the bad, and the ugly. But one thing every Alien movie, especially Romulus, always does without fail is make me anxious. There are sequences in this movie that make my chest tight, no pun intended. And when I get anxious, I tend to do bad things like bite my lips. So I needed something to help distract myself from stressful situations and help me forget. A core screen is like spearmint active, and it can a passive diffusion system that does not use electronics by your oral fixation.
Hold on. I'm not gonna lie. I actually been looking for something like this. I gotta take that QR code. I'm not even gonna lie to you. I've been looking for an alternative. I'm not gonna lie. Sponsored. Whatever.
Habits through a passive diffusion system.
I'm actually gonna watch this ad.
When I distract myself from stressful situations and help me forget those bad oral fixation habits and replace them with a positive one. That's why I started using Fume. They're the sponsor of this video.
Oh, is that a vape?
It's not a vape, it's not electronic, and it doesn't have pods filled with potentially harmful chemicals. Instead, it has these plant-based cores that are infused with natural flavors to create natural flavored air. You see, flavored air is quickly quickly becoming the leading alternative to vaping and smoking. Fume contains no nicotine, it is not addictive, and it contains non-toxic flavors. It contains plant-based flavors like spearmint ice, cinnamon hearts, and my current favorite, orange vanilla. With flavored air, you can satisfy your oral fixation habits through a passive diffusion system that does not use electronics, vapor, or combustion. But mostly I like that it still gives me something to reach for when I feel anxious, and it even has movable parts for fidgeting that make an incredibly
where can I buy
satisfying
it?
sound.
Where can I
Fume
buy
has
it?
served over 300,000 customers, and you can be their next success story. For a limited time, you can use my code SCREENCRUSH to get your free topper. It's the perfect accessory to your Fume device. You slip it onto the mouthpiece for a softer, warmer feel. It's chewable for those who love to fidget, and it's reusable. So head to tryfume.com, that's tryfum.com, and use the code SCREENCRUSH or scan the QR code on screen to get your free Fume topper when you order the Journey Pack today. Now, back to Alien.
Yeah, I'm confused. I thought it was the same android as in Aliens.
Nope, it's a different Rook. They're just made from the same cast. And we've actually seen this before. The Weyland-Yutani company actually reused David's design for their newer android, Walter.
I was designed to be more attentive
It's $100
than every previous model.
And it actually leads to a pretty kick-ass fastbender-on-fastbender fight in Alien Covenant. So, synthetics have always been a bit tricky in the Alien universe. Namely, it's hard to tell if they're good or evil. The first synthetic we ever meet, in order of release of course, is Ash, and he's completely awful. He's the personified, or I guess robotified version of pure corporate greed. Lives are far less important than a potential moneymaker. In some ways, this is inevitable. It's built into the programming.
What was your special order?
Bring back life form. Priority 1. All other priorities rescinded.
But they're also not completely evil. It's established in Aliens when Lance Bishop saves Ripley and Newt.
I'll go. I mean, I'm the only one qualified to remote pilot the ship anyway.
And Andy's a good guy.
Yes, and I think it's because he's an older model that hasn't been updated. So the synthetics in the Alien universe are interesting because they've actually become less human as time progressed. David, in early generation synthetics, was too human.
You were too human, too idiosyncratic. Thinking for yourself.
David can also feel emotions, or at least he thinks he can feel emotions. It's kind of a murky distinction.
I loved her, of course. You know that's not possible.
And it's also implied that Walter, a newer generation synthetic, has emotions, but he's very resistant to the idea of having them.
Then why did you sacrifice your hand for her life? What is that if not love?
Duty.
There are several times where it seems like Andy does have emotions. Embarrassment, fear, love, but when he gets the new module and the updated operating system, he becomes evil. My guess is that the older generation synthetics are actually capable of some type of emotion, like David claimed. But Weyland-Yutani is synthetically updating this emotion out of their synthetics to create greed-minded murder bots like Ash and Rook, who will do anything for the company.
But wasn't David like super evil?
He was, but he was evil in a remarkably human way. To put it simply, he had daddy issues.
Doesn't everyone want their parents dead?
He hated that he was treated as less than by humans, and he especially hated that his father projected love onto him while also maintaining that David could never reciprocate that love. He called David his son, but really he was just a tool. That's not a very no emotions robot reason to become evil. That's like half the supervillains we talk about here on the channel.
Low-key. Same daddy, same issues.
Oh boy.
Plus, David fell in love with Shaw because she's nice to him.
I'd never known such kindness.
Again, that's a very human reaction. So Andy from Romulus appears to love Rain because she loves him and treats him with respect, furthering the idea that they can actually feel emotion. And if synthetics can feel emotions, that opens up a whole...
Since they're synthetics and they're basically AI, they replicate these emotions because they learn, right? So guess they learn what they're given and they give back what they're given. They don't really feel it, they just it gets heightened, and their AI is so good they think that they feel it. Okay, now that makes a lot of sense actually, to a point.
Whole nother can of worms. That would mean that they're not inherently good or evil. They are truly just like humans. They are shaped by their experiences. So we also find out a lot more about the Weyland-Yutani company's true purpose.
I guess that is a question. I guess that makes you human, right? The way you're shaped by your experiences? Or is it more than that? Like how you feel? like you actually feeling and not thinking that you're feeling. But I mean, don't we all think that we feel some way? Isn't that what feeling is? You think about it and you feel it? Am I getting carried away? Maybe. Nah, they really cooked with this series. They really cooked. They really cooked with the trilogy, quadrilogy. On God, they cooked.
In the original quadrilogy, Weyland-Yutani is basically just an evil megacorp with no thought beyond maximizing profit and colonization. And don't get me wrong, that's definitely a big part of who they are. But they also have a more philosophical driving force, immortality. You heard me right, Weyland-Yutani's real obsession is with creating immortal humans. There was a promotional TED Talk for Prometheus where Peter Weyland said,
"We can create cybernetic individuals who, in just a few short years, will be completely indistinguishable from us."
And he even calls humanity the new gods.
That's crazy.
Synthetics were his first step in the quest for immortality. They never die, they never age, and he thought that they would be loyal forever. If you can't live forever, at least your companion will. And the entire reason he funds the Prometheus mission is so that he can live longer.
Save you from what?
Death, of course.
Playing into the themes of how even a trillionaire can't buy more time. And this movie confirms that Weyland-Yutani is still chasing that goal of immortality even after Weyland's death. And that rewrites some of the canon from the original film.
Yeah, didn't Ripley say they needed the xenomorph for weapons?
She does in fact say that, but that's an assumption. She doesn't actually know because she's not in the science division. And again, that is a great way to merge the prequels with the original films. Weyland-Yutani still needs the xenomorph genetic material, just like in the original film, but it's for reasons that align with the prequel movies. And hey, speaking of xenomorphs and their genetic creation,
that one was sick. That one was crazy. But no, that's a good point. That's a really good point because we don't know what we're just still finding out what they're really doing. You know, even back then, even after the quadrilogy finished, we're still finding more about what they're doing. Like, I didn't know that, like, Remus was a station where no one else was allowed, just science officers. They had Xenos, they knew what they were doing at that point, and they were experimenting. I mean, it's been 50 years. So they've had the time and the capabilities, and that's what they've been doing this whole time. It's crazy. It's fucking crazy.
Be sure to check out our Abbey Road parody shirt, Ripley Road, featuring a design inspired by the evolution of these deep space demons. We also have this fun Dogs Playing Poker parody featuring parodies of our beloved aliens from across various classic sci-fi franchises. Shopping our merch store is the best way to support our channel so that we can keep making videos just like this one. Thank you so much for your support.
I'm not gonna lie,
also, just a fun little nod to the
AI designs.
Movies. The black goo extracted from the xenomorph is actually used as a biological weapon, just not by humans. In Prometheus, there's this godlike alien race called the Engineers who had a ton of it at a military outpost. So now let's get into the question that we've all been waiting for. What's up with the xenomorphs? First of all, I think the genetic labs beg the question, who created the xenomorphs in the first place? In case you haven't seen Prometheus or Covenant, let me recap what we know from those films. In Prometheus, a scientific team discovers a black goo, probably the same black goo that we see in Romulus. One of the scientists, Holloway, is poisoned with the goo and he turns into a freaky monster, but before he does that, he has sex with his wife, Shaw. Shaw then gets pregnant, but she pulls a WandaVision and becomes 3 months pregnant in 10 hours. She aborts the alien and it then grows into this terrifying squid monster called a trilobite. Long story short, it facehuggers one of the engineers and from his chest pops a deacon, which is either a close relative of the xenomorph or possibly its evolutionary predecessor. Then, in Alien Covenant, David's experiment with Shaw's dead body to create a whole bunch of weird aliens, including bloodbursters, neomorphs, and predomorphs. So basically, in all of the prequels, we see a lot of creatures that are really close to the xenomorphs, but not quite xenomorphs. And we don't really know how we get from point A to point B. There are theories that the engineers created them, and that's why the Nostradamus crew found them in that ship. There are also theories that David created them through his experimentation. I mean, there has to be a reason that we see all of these xenomorph-like creatures in the prequels, but never an actual xenomorph. Hell, in Prometheus, there's even a mural of what looks like a xenomorph, but not an actual xenomorph. In all honesty, I don't think there were any on the planet LV-223 because they would have attacked the entire crew of the Prometheus ship, and that movie would have ended way earlier. LV-223, of course, being that original moon from the first film. It's possible that they existed at one point and then were extinct, or the engineers never brought them to LV-223 in the first place, but it seems super unlikely that they were inhabiting the planet of LV-223 while humans were there. Now, all of the xenomorph-like creatures from the prequels were created through experimentation, and only 2 entities have experimented with aliens, David and the Weyland-Yutani Corporation. At the end of Alien Covenant, David boards a Weyland-Yutani ship with 2 facehugger embryos, and that happens in the year 2104. We also know the Covenant is a colonizer ship heading to terraform a new planet. Then, only 18 years later, the Nostradamus finds a xenomorph egg on a random moon. It's sketchy, especially now that we know that the Weyland-Yutani Corporation is playing with genetic experimentation. Also, Romulus opens by stating that Weyland-Yutani looked for the Nostradamus for 17 years. That seems really excessive for an alien that might yield genetic experimentation results. It would make a lot more sense if they knew exactly what that alien was and if that's what drove them to find it. At the very least, I think the Weyland-Yutani Corporation knows some of what happened on the Prometheus journey. I mean, there is reference to the expedition in the movie, and again, it just makes more sense that they have some idea what a xenomorph is if they invest that much time and money into looking for one. But maybe Romulus is not the first time Weyland-Yutani experimented on aliens. What if they've been experimenting with alien creatures ever since David landed on Origai 6? In the first Alien film, the eggs are found in a ship similar to the engineer's ship, but in Prometheus, the engineer's ship doesn't have eggs at all. So what if Weyland-Yutani fertilized those eggs themselves and it had to be in an engineered ship because of the black goo? Instead of risking their own lives by approaching their creation, they send an unsuspecting commercial spaceship to literally host their new creatures. That would explain why they're so obsessed with finding the Nostradamus and why they had so many facehuggers.
Wow, so basically that would mean that the Nostromo crew was a test. They were a test subject. That means they were a test subject, bro. That's crazy. That's crazy. There was no job. They were the test. The method. You're the method. Brother, you're the lick. Like, bro, come on.
Despite having apparently only one xenomorph, and the seemingly serendipitous connection between the engineers in Prometheus and the engineer ship in Alien. Now, this was a standalone film, so it was never going to answer all of these questions, but for a standalone, it really brings in a lot of references from the prequels and the originals and opens up a really cool can of worms. Remember, it was produced by Ridley Scott himself, and Fede Alvarez pitched it directly to Ridley Scott. So I don't think any of these references are random. After all, there is another Alien project set for...
Ooh. I want to see that. I'm excited for that. I'm down with that. Because honestly, this is such a great concept. It was really ahead of its time. But it's like now we have the minds and the effects and the ways to do it. But it's good that it started back then, so it stays true to how creative it actually was back in the day. Because if this was something now, it could be totally different. If it was made now, you know what I mean? Like, you know, probably would have been made with an agenda and try to sell a product. And like, there is no... What's great about this movie too is like it can't be used any other way. Like, the lore is set, you know, or the idea or the concept is set, bro. You can't change that. If you change that, you'll get bombasted. I don't know if that's the word, or lambasted. I don't know, by fans. They'll eat you alive, my boy. Eat you alive, my boy. Yeah, if they try to make a movie or an FX series and make it like, put, put like product placement in it, they'll get slapped, and I hope they do. FX though, interesting. FX is doing it. See, FX is doing it. I wish Max, I guess, or HBO Max. I wish it was. I don't wish anything, but I guess it's Max now. But I wish Max was doing it. They do great stuff.
For next year
When
called
comes to
Alien
gritty
Earth,
stuff.
and it takes place around the same time as Prometheus. This could all be hinting at the history we'll see in that new show. Plus, Fede Alvarez said, quote, "I'm also a big fan of following the canon to the letter and not deviating too much from previous creations. With that in mind, I don't think Alvarez would do anything that could undermine future projects, especially since Ridley Scott was involved and would tell him if he was violating canon." Special shout out to Brianna McLarty, the writer of this video, and guys, let me know, did you like Alien Romulus? Did you like the connections to the prequels and the originals? Let us know down in the comments below, or you can at me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, be sure to subscribe, smash that bell for alerts. For Screen Crush, I'm Colton Ogburn.
Alright, guys. Well, thanks for watching. Overall, the movie was great. Hold on, though. I didn't see anything about Easter eggs. This is already a 40-minute video, but...
I'm your host, Paul, and in this video, we're breaking down Alien Romulus.
I'm so
the brand new sci-fi horror sees a return to one of my favorite film franchises of all time, and on the whole, I think it mostly knocks it out of the park. Mostly. Throughout this video, we're going to be breaking down the movie and also talking about what happens with the ending. Also, just to let you know, we've just launched our Alien Chestburster t-shirt, which is available at the merch store below.
Don't care.
A relatively unexplored time period. We have seen certain aspects of it in Alien Isolation when Amanda Ripley went looking for her mother. When it comes to the movies though, this is the perfect bridge between the first two films, and that even comes down to tone. The movie starts off slow, similar to Alien, before ramping up in the action department akin to its sequel. Ridley Scott is a producer on this movie though, so it definitely leans more towards the former. This includes the credits at the start, which is completely in line with the original Alien. We start in space with names appearing in white, which comes after the 20th Century Fox fanfare. That fanfare ends with the notes going down the scale, which is something we got at the start of Alien 3. Not Resurrection, which I was a bit disappointed about, but hey, breakdowns on the channel now. Either way, at this point, Weyland-Yutani's at the height of its power and out in the galaxy looking for bioweapons. Aboard the Romulus Remus spaceship, we see their experiments being conducted. The ship is separated into two paths, and it's possible the name itself is a nod to another of Ridley's creations. Romulus and Remus were raised by wolves, with Ridley making a sci-fi series that shared that name. And I'll always be gutted they never finished it. Now the opening is clearly ripping off the startup scene in the 1979 one, with retro futuristic tech waking up on the ship. We also see that the computer's name is Mother, which is the same name as the one aboard the Nostromo. Speaking of that ship, the Romulus Remus comes across the destroyed remains of it, with the ship of course being blown up by Ripley. Now this highlights that the corporation were also aware that an alien species was out there, which confirms that this was the real mission for the Nostromo. This is why they placed the synthetic ash aboard the ship, and it's something fans have theorized for years. In suits akin to the ones from the opening of Aliens, we see as they collect a rock cluster, which they then cut down and take on board the ship. Unbeknownst to them, something else came aboard with that though, and thus everything goes to hell. Now from this point, we're introduced to Rain, who's dreaming of a paradise. This highlights the character's drive to escape, as she's really stuck on board a Weyland-Yutani run planet. We see her waking up in bed with photos on the walls, similar to the rest of the chambers dotted about the Nostromo. There's also the dipping bird thing, which appeared not only on the Nostromo, but also in Alien Isolation. Meeting with her synthetic pal Andy, we see she goes outside and can catch a sign that says bar. This featured in Aliens and can be seen at Hadley's hut when the Marines arrive there. It's actually interesting seeing a successfully run Weyland-Yutani operation, as normally they all go to crap. However, we succeed in Andy, we see she goes outside and can catch a sign that says bar. This featured in Aliens and can be seen at Hadley's hut when the Marines...
Damn. That's how it could have turned out.
Arrived there. It's actually interesting seeing a successfully run Weyland-Yutani operation, as normally they all go to crap. However, we did get a look at one in the director's cut of Aliens, with us seeing what happened before it all fell apart. We also catch someone wearing a coat similar to Burke's jacket, and similar profiles to what the characters had throughout the movies. The Reeboks also make a return as well, and I know now you can buy limited edition versions of these, so subscribe to my membership. Please click the join button. Now Rain is very much a blue-collar worker who feels like a cog in a corporate-run universe. They run everything, including quotas that have to be met so the staff can have freedom. Rain seemingly reached this, but the quotas were raised, and thus she can't leave the planet. Life isn't good here. It looks like Britain in the summer, and Andy's beaten in the street, while this dark and desolate planet's just depress a mate. No one's hitting the thumbs up, no one's subscribing, and they're all having to sit around and watch Alien 3. The theatrical cut. What you'll instantly notice though is how well they've managed to recapture the feel of the '79 film, and it's like a love letter to that movie. Whether it's the 8-bit graphics, the clothes, or even down to the panels in the wall, it's all got this amazing attention to detail. Either way, Rain meets up with her friends who know of a job that's basically gonna be their ticket out of there. This involves a stranded Weyland ship carrying cryopods, which you can guess which one that is. They talk about how sleeping one feels like a night of hard drinking, and the crew and Alien woke up looking like they'd had a night out with Kevin's spoilers. Now this calm before the storm also gives us a chance to get to learn the crew, including the fact one of them is pregnant. This is Kay, played by Isabella Merced, who's so hot right now. She's so hot right now. Her brother isn't aware that she's pregnant, and we get the feeling that he and Rain have had something going on in the past. We also learn why one of the crew hates synthetics, and this is down to one making a logical decision. His distrust stems from an incident in the mines where a synthetic had to make a choice regarding the death of the few or the many. There was a gas leak, and the synth sealed his mother and a couple of others inside in order to save a greater number of people. It's basically that tram meme, and though it was probably the right decision, you can see why the guy would be angry. Can I interest you in the pleasure fembot model, good sir? Now you might also spot the name Harrison on a chair throughout these moments, with this being a nod to the Marine from Alien vs Predator 2. We also get a Weyland-Yutani building better world sign, which is something that showed up in Aliens. Now they learn from the cryopods that the ship's only capable of travelling 3 light years, and thus they're gonna need more pods. Along the way, Andy also says, "I prefer the term artificial person," which is something Bishop said during Aliens. Unfortunately, this means that he can't travel to the planet with them, and yeah, felt really bad for the guy. Hug your Alexas tonight. And they come across a torn-up synthetic, which perfectly plays upon Andy's worries. This has a blue shirt, and yeah, no prizes for guessing that's what Ash wore in Alien. Rain later ends up retrieving a chip, and this allows Andy to learn more about the ship. Now the group have been tracking the temperature variations in order to find more pods, and they come across a room full of facehuggers. Always thought, right, the name facehugger, it sounds quite pleasant, like let me hug your face. Now I have kind of told things out of order here, but it's more just to give you an idea of how it plays out. The chip is put into Andy while the facehuggers attack, and he undergoes a transformation. He's now upgraded and got double the strength, double the dad jokes, and also a British accent. AI's taking my job. Although they manage to escape the room, a facehugger latches onto Navarro. Realizing they need help on how to handle it, they restart the synthetic in a scene that's akin to Ash's final one in Alien. The CGI is a bit iffy, well really iffy, looks like a Snapchat filter with them deep faking Ian Holmes' face onto the synth. You can kind of forgive it though because he's a robot, but I know there's been several complaints about it. It kind of reminds me of the bit from Alien 3 where Ripley restarted Bishop. For that movie they ended up reusing an old model of Lance from Aliens that initially they just wanted to have talk with Ripley. However, they realized it looked a bit off, but instead of scrapping it, they then leaned into it. They messed up the model's face more, and I think it looks better for it, and kinda wish they'd done the same thing here. The movie is getting compared a lot to Rogue One in terms of the plot, but I think it's in terms of the CGI as well. I still enjoyed the movie obviously, but I have got to be fair. Now from here we learn it's been 20 years since the Nostromo. We get a photo of Kane and also some lip service to Ripley when they mention there was only one survivor. The corporation have been desperately searching for the ship, and we learn they found the xenomorph from the first film. The hook Ripley shot into it can be seen in its back, and we learn the corporation's been trying to recreate it. It survived, and I loved how they picked up on the xenomorph still being alive. You could actually see this as it got blasted off into space, and it's something I pointed out in our original breakdown on the film. Attempting to freeze the face hugger, they get it off Navarro, but they wrestle back and forth on whether they did it in time. Andy warns that they can't return to the ship, which is sort of an opposite to Ash in the original Alien. There, Ash wanted the creature on board and was willing to go against quarantine to do this. Knocking him back with a stun baton from isolation, the gang go to leave faster than Heavy Spoilers puts out a breakdown, which leads to Andy trying to stop them. Again, it speaks to the logical programming of a synthetic and how they'll always try and avert the greater danger. Hashtag Andy was right though, and Navarro begins to go into labour. Kay holds her, and you have these two ideas of pregnancy juxtaposing each other. The first film thematically was supposed to be about sexual assault on a man and the horrors of a man giving birth, at least to some degree. There's lots of things turned up to 11 and themes of motherhood subverted and twisted. That definitely feels like the case here too, with pregnancy being a big thing throughout the third act. The ship is then accidentally sent out of control as the xenomorph climbs out of Navarro and it sends the Romulus Remus off.
The way the ship went out of control was absolutely insane as well. It spun like around and then just ended up in the bay.
Course. This gives it an access change that means it's gonna crash in 40 minutes instead of 36 hours. It's a mad dash to rescue the crewmates and make it off the ship, all while the xenomorph and facehuggers are on the hunt. Ash, or rather Rook, requests help from Andy with him getting new directives to finish the ship's original mission. It's possible that Rook is also named after Rook from the expanded lore, with that being a character who was a stablemate of Bishop. All hell breaks loose either way though, and we've got so many unforgettable moments. These are things like trying to sneak past the facehuggers by evading their heat sensing abilities, acid deaths, and yeah, it's insane. Don't care if you've got no fingers, hit the thumbs up. Now I absolutely love them trying to sneak past the facehuggers, but fear causing them to sweat then raises the temperature. You've also got this perfect balance of fear with Kay in another part of the ship while she tries to evade a newly awakened xenomorph. He makes this guy's body match the colour of his headband, and that red headband is of course a nod to Vasquez. Making it to a doorway, Kay asks them to open it, but Andy rightly says that this is what the xenomorph wants. When they don't, Kay's eventually captured and she's presumed dead. However, as we know from the franchise, the xenomorphs tend to just take people away. In the director's cut of Alien, Ripley came across captured members of the group, and Newt was also taken to the nest. Ripley, knowing they didn't kill their prey, is why she went after her, so it makes sense to have them doing this with Kay. Now from this point they venture to a lab, and from Rook learn more about Weyland-Yutani. There's a tank there, and it's akin to the ones that the facehuggers were kept in at Hadley's Hope. Through a demonstration we see a rat crushed and resurrected, and it reveals the corporation wanted to harness the xenomorph's survival capabilities. In Prometheus we had a fair idea of what the engineers were up to, with them not only creating us, but also the xenomorphs. However, in trying to create new life like this, they unleashed a monster and would do whatever they could to destroy it. They created man, and man made machines, with David then experimenting on the xenomorphs and making further upgrades. The black goo was extremely toxic and transformative, and we see this sort of thing echoed in the movie. Rook brings up how Weyland died searching for this quote-unquote Prometheus fire, with a character dying during Prometheus. Now we learn the xenomorphs are practically immortal to a certain extent, and Andy's goal is to now retrieve the samples over protecting Rain. Arming up with the pulse rifles used by colonial marines, they then make it to the nest, which feels like it's ripped right out of Aliens. Discovering Kay, the trio manage to free her and make their mad dash to escape the ship. Pursued by the creatures, Tyler's then killed, and Andy's also attacked and left unable to move. Rain and Kay though, they make it back to an elevator, which is clearly based off Ripley and Newt's escape in Aliens. This is then mirrored when Rain goes back down and steps out of the elevator and returns. This is because she refuses to leave Andy behind despite him not being real or human. It shows the dream of leaving him to go to the paradise probably wouldn't have happened, and she views him as an actual brother. She hands over the samples to Kay before then descending down the ladder. Now unfortunately for them, the rat from before is transformed into something, so this isn't necessarily a fix all problems cure. As Kay ascends, she injects herself with the blood, which is a bold strategy, and we'll see if it pays off for them. Kay of course has seen firsthand what a facehugger can lead to though, and out of fear she does what she thinks is best. Rain then removes the chip with Andy's new directive, and they make an attempt to escape after deactivating the ship's gravity. They have to do this after Rook blocks them in, with him saying the line about how they have his sympathies like what Ash said in Alien. Now it's an incredibly creative scene that feels like it's ripped right out of Dead Space, which of course took inspiration from this franchise. The acid blood swims around in 0G and they have to crawl past it as it floats around the corridors. She also says, "Andy, are you okay?" Which, is that a Michael Jackson reference? Either way, she's grabbed by a xenomorph and then rescued by Andy, who delivers the iconic line, "Get away from her, you bitch." After an intense battle, they then manage to get back to the ship. Rook believes they plan to deliver the samples, but they end up destroying them. This ensues the corporation can't exploit the xenomorphs, and also explains why they continue their search in aliens. Rook says Wayland will be in touch soon to pick up the samples from Rain's dream destination, but explains why they bitch. After an intense battle, they then manage to get back to the ship. Rook believes they plan to deliver the samples, but they end up destroying them. This ensues the corporation can't exploit the xenomorphs, and also explains why they continue their search in aliens. Rook says Wayland will be in touch soon to pick up the samples from Rain's dream destination, but yeah, what a way to ruin the world tour. The Romulus Remus ship then crashes, destroying all evidence, and thank God we can finally rest. As per usual though, all alien movies have a fourth act, and yeah, this one goes pretty insane. Kay goes into labor, and we then see she ends up giving birth to an egg. Took me back to seeing my own kids being born, with this being a horrific version of that. It hatches with a human's face inside of it, which is one of the craziest things I think I've seen in this franchise. Rain then attempts to freeze it, but she ends up hesitating upon seeing what it looks like. To me, this is a nod to the newborn from Resurrection, with that also being part baby, part xenomorph. However, it also appears sort of like an engineer as well, and I'd love to hear what your theories on that crazy little baby are. Acid from the egg then melts through the floor, and it falls into the cargo hold. Going down there after it, Rain discovers it's empty, and this leads into an alien-human hybrid, which feels like it's again building off the newborn. It's way creepier though, and also feels reminiscent of Splice, which took a lot of inspiration from the franchise. It strikes Andy and then approaches Kay, initially seeming like it's about to feed. However, a second mouth comes out, and then Rain catches it, feasting off her friend. As the temperature... So it does feed literally, but you know what I mean. And as the temperature drops, Rain dons a spacesuit, which riffs off Ripley doing it at the end of Alien. Realizing her only chance is to eject it into space, she heads into the cargo hold. However, before she can pull the last lever, the hybrid attacks. Thus, Rain burns a hole in the floor through using the acid, which creates a breach. Sucked into space, Rain finally manages to kill it, but her future's left uncertain. Kay is dead, but she vows to fix Andy, and she heads out to try and recapture her initial dream. Now, it is possible that the future of the franchise has been something I've touched upon in the sequel to Alien Resurrection. In the book Original Sin, we learned there was a group known as Loki who were trying to track down Ripley and co. I feel like this might be what they do with Rain in the future, and that Weyland-Yutani will likely try and get to her. We end with her giving a log as she sleeps in her cryopod, which is of course how the first film ended. She's out there somewhere with a ship that may have samples on, and they at least know that there is a way for it to interact with humans. However, all it's going to do is create something horrific. However, there are directions they can take things in the future. Now, I hope that they decide to do those spin-offs and sequels as well, as this really feels like they found their footing with the franchise again. The movie was an incredible ride that constantly kept upping the stakes. Originally, it was supposed to be a Hulu original, but I'm so glad they gave it that big screen release. That's something I felt they should have done with Prey, but I'm glad these two franchises are back on top form again. And release Prey 2 in cinemas, yeah, it deserves it. As for this movie, it's got the horror, intensity, but also the memorable side characters and themes that are why I fell in love with the franchise in the first place. Sure, the CGI was a bit iffy, and I kinda wish they'd not gone with that. That's probably my only major nitpick though, and it hits way more than it misses. Dan Murrell described it as being like a cover song, and to some degree, I think that's the perfect description. Now, while that can be used to describe something in a negative way, I think it's a good cover song, and it's playing the right notes with the odd riff here that helps you feel like you're finding something new to like. Still though, it does feel like it's trying to mimic those movies, rather than setting out on its own terms like Alien or Resurrection did. Hell, even Prometheus. Because of that, it feels slightly stifled by them, rather than being something able to step out of their shadow. However, when it's this good, you don't really care, and I think every major fan of the franchise is gonna find something to like. I don't agree with that. It does lack originality on the whole, but that final act kinda makes up for it by doing something bananas. I know that it might make or break the movie for some people, including our editor Matt, who said he didn't like it, but I was one of the people that loved the direction they went. So yeah, extremely enthusiastic, I highly recommend it, and in space, no one could hear me cream over... Just need to stop with these puns, but... can't help myself. I'm gone. Either way, that ends the video, and obviously I'd love to...
In space, no one can hear me cream. What are you talking about? Alright, so... maybe just to be sissy, but I found a hybrid creature genuinely scary. I like when it first appears. There's no music. It's just chilling. It's just chilling out, quietly staring at them and smiling. It was refreshing to actually be scared by something in a film. Oh, facts. was highly disturbing. The end was a downfall for me. I was having a blast to the very end. Okay. First two frames when it's in the hallway was fucking 10 out of 10. I was like, what the hell is that thing? The human xenomorph thing was fucking horrifying, I guess. Yeah, this movie made me hunger for more of the universe. Same as the first and the second. Yep. TV series, I'm not much cared about it, but little I've heard positive. Colony world building was the best part. I expected the third act to take place there. I was disappointed. Yeah. Havoc in the colony for the fourth act is crazy. Not to alien resurrection as a likeness of an engineer from Prometheus, probably due to the black goo she injected in herself. I like to think it has a lot of DNA to the engineers. Probably was way stronger considering it can mutate rapidly. You look at Glock, I just left the movie. Don't they all grow up and mutate rapidly, okay. Well, that was good. That was great. Great stuff. Alright. Thanks for watching. Peace out. Awesome movie. You should definitely go see it.